We all learned as children that in 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue, got lost, discovered America, and now we celebrate Columbus Day. But what about Leif Erikson, the Norse explorer who established a settlement in Newfoundland almost 500 years before Columbus? Or for that matter, what about the Indians who had already lived in the Americas for thousands of years? Why is it that we regard Columbus as a hero who discovered America, but we disregard the fact that his primary interests were in gold and slaves? From a young age, we all learn the same basic historical events and ideas. However, much of what we learn is generalized, biased, and edited to make history more flattering. The detrimental effects of teaching myth instead of truth can easily be seen among contemporary Native American people. Negative stereotypes affect all cultures and ethnicities, but in the United States, no minority group is still as widely and publicly plagued by them as are Native Americans. Sports still use offensive Native American mascots, and companies still brand their products with Native American stereotypes. Hollywood especially continues to paint false pictures of what people think are real Indians, the noble savage and the Indian princess. These widely accepted stereotypes allow the continuation of racism and ignorance towards Native people, as well as the continued damage to their self-identity and self-esteem. If you take a minute to consider the implications of how we portray Native Americans, it isn't hard to see the need for change. So why is it that even today, in the age of political correctness, that the issue is static? Children begin learning stereotypes at a young age. Television and movies likely form the basis for most stereotypes. When it comes to Indian stereotypes, however, these ideas may very well be solidified in the classroom. Remember preschool or kindergarten when you dressed up as a pilgrim or an Indian and reenacted the first Thanksgiving? If you were one of the Indians, chances are you wore a feathered headband and carried a tomahawk while you pretended to celebrate the friendship between pilgrims and Indians. What they don't tell you about is the post-Columbian plague, which killed thousands of natives and was caused by diseases brought over by the Europeans. They also don't tell you about the Pequot Massacre in 1637, in which Plymouth colonists killed hundreds of Pequot men, women, and children. When kids learn United States history, most of what they learn is centered on a fictionalized version of the first Thanksgiving. Textbooks, as well as teachers, fail to differentiate between different tribes and their respective lifestyles and cultures, including style of dress. The general idea of what children think of as an Indian is a stereotypical Plains Indian warrior. Children are not taught to think of natives as members of different tribes, but simply as an autonomous group. After Thanksgiving, Native Americans are largely ignored in textbooks and classroom curriculum of United States history until the Trail of Tears. Even then, the tragic story of the forced removal of the Cherokee, along with other tribes, from their homeland to Oklahoma, is briefly skimmed over and lost to the glorified concept of the white man's so-called manifest destiny. Even the Trail of Tears, possibly the most tragic and pivotal event for the Cherokee, as well as other tribes, is turned into a side note of most history classes. The reasons for forcing the removal of thousands of Native Americans, as well as many of the disheartening realities of what happened on the Trail of Tears, are lightly skimmed over, if at all acknowledged. Private John Burnett's birthday story is commonly used to describe the Trail of Tears. The moving story was supposedly told by one of the privates of the federal troops guarding the Cherokee on their way to Oklahoma. While the story is touching, it has been proved to be pure fiction by Burnett's pension record, as well as other historical inaccuracies. Still, the story is taught and accepted as true. Another issue is that from the way Indians are portrayed, whether by movies or history books, children perceive them as being a thing of the past or an extinct group of people, while, in reality, they may very well have Indian children in their class. In the event that children learn anything about contemporary Native Americans, It is usually limited to vague knowledge of life on reservations and is often plagued by the horribly prominent drunk and gambling stereotypes. Many people never learn about historical events such as the Dawes Act, assimilation, and Indian boarding schools, or how the after effects of these continue to cause irreparable damage to Native Americans today. Teachers get so caught up in promoting the romanticized version of pan-Native American history that they undermine important facts and unflattering realities. The edited version of Native American history taught in mainstream America may very well have originated as a way to cope with white guilt. However, it is the same guilt that is now hurting Indians in other ways. For Indian students, participating in class activities that portray their culture incorrectly and oftentimes in an insulting manner can easily damage a child's sense of self-esteem and self-identity. At the same time, non-Indian children are learning stereotypes and racism, which also negatively affect Native Americans. On average, less than 50% of Native Americans graduate high school. The alarmingly high dropout rates are attributed to a variety of factors, ranging from substance abuse to poverty and feeling unwelcome or pushed out of school. Ironically, the solution to many of the issues plaguing Indians is, in fact, education. Many of these issues stem, at least partially, from a lack of self-esteem and poor self-image. By building the self-esteem of Native American children at a young age through truthful and relevant curriculum and an accommodating classroom environment, as well as by properly educating non-Native children so as to help eradicate stereotypes and racism, teachers can help to build a solid educational foundation for Native children and, in turn, help to facilitate their academic success.